academically, we Yoruba we say Olodo. And from birth we said it is from birth that I know that it is very, very bad to label a child an Olodo. By coming in, they introduced a 21st century teaching skill to us. From it, we are able to know that when you are teaching students, you let them collaborate with each other. From there, they learn from each other. Children learn from each other. Initially, I don't know that. I believe students only learn from teachers. But from the training it was like BAF, I was able to know that you allow children to collaborate, learn from each other. You segment your teaching and learning. Let them learn from one another. Academically, we Yoruba we say Olodo. I say a very from big science it is from BAF, which they have been helping the government school teachers. I know that it is very, very in order for us to be in an equal level, probably with international teachers. I'm Raul Profian from Pasloma.
Invite them in your children, in the children, in your pupils in your school, because at the end of the day, you see the results subsequently, and it'll be amazing that you mold those lives. It'll be amazing that you were part of the process. It'll be amazing that you helped make a change that impacted just not one, more people.
Nigeria is home to 70% of the world's out of school children, while those in school seem not to be reaping the benefits of accessing primary education, especially public primary school.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon to you all. And I want to thank every one of you that joined the meeting very early. We opened up the Zoom meeting by 2:45, and there were already loads of people waiting to be a part of it. And thank you. I know for most of you, we are meeting for the first time, even virtually, and why some of you we are meeting for the first time in this year 2022. So I want to wish you all a very happy new year, and it is our prayer that this year will be our year, and we'll be able to add value to the lives of people and make impacts even within and outside the classroom. It's going to be a very full house today, and my colleagues are on the call. Executive Director, also Miss Kemi Odedi. She's also on the call and she's excited to be here with you this afternoon as we embark on a journey on how to make lasting impacts in our careers as educators, either school leader or classroom teachers. So please, we are still expecting people to join us. So if perhaps you know your friend that registered and is not here, just buzz the person up on WhatsApp and tell them that we have started the we are already live for the webinar training for January, and that they should join us so that they can get the maximum value. Like I already told you by email, we're bringing a scholar to talk to us this afternoon. Very soon you will be hearing from her. She's someone who is very sound. She's someone who has made a lot of impact in the educational sector in Nigeria. She's known internationally because of the works that she does, and she's also an alumni of the prestigious Harvard University. I know we all know that Harvard University is the best university in the world, not just by name, but even by the products they produce. So we have one of such products here this afternoon to talk to us on how we can make lasting impacts through our works as teachers, how we can create a transformational influence in the lives of the children that pass through us in the classroom. So please, we're expecting more people to join us. Yes, I can see the numbers are fastly increasing. Thank you so much. And I also have my colleagues at the back end. In the course of this session, you'll probably get to hear from one or two of them, Vigwe and Wale. I also want to appreciate you for all the works that we do together as a team to ensure that we achieve our goal as a foundation, and more importantly, add value to the lives of every pupil, every student, every teacher that participates in any of our projects as a foundation. So I'm very happy about today. I'm super excited about today, and I'm very optimistic that it's going to be a very great afternoon for us all, and I can assure you, you will not have any regret that you are here with us this afternoon. So I believe that as educators, we should have our pen ready. We should have our notepads beside us, because once we start dishing out the training, you will have a lot to write. So please, let's just be ready as we wait briefly for more people to join us. Thank you.
Graduates. This may be due in part to a huge gap in both availability of suitable and qualified teachers, as up to 40% of teachers in schools assessed do not have a teaching qualification. That is, 4 unqualified teachers out of every 10. Yet, they are faced with a classroom size of as high as 1 teacher to 50 pupils. This does not only reduce the effectiveness of learning in such an environment, but calls for the teacher to develop and acquire new skills to be able to manage the classroom. Since the teacher struggles to manage an obviously overflowing classroom, students also find it extremely difficult to learn under such conditions. Yet, over half of these indigent but promising students never get to complete a secondary education due to socio-economic factors. If the adults of tomorrow are denied quality education today, then we are faced with a future crisis, and a huge one at that. Something needs to be done quickly. Teachers deserve to be better prepared so that they can deliver quality education to the pupils that pass through the system. Basic education remains the most important foundation every child needs to build on. No nation can rise above the quality of its teachers, so we must act now. The Bumi Adedayo Foundation was set up to address gaps identified in the achievement of quality learning outcomes in public primary education. With more than 90% of its pupils in public primary schools coming from underprivileged backgrounds, primary education may be the only education most of them will access and must therefore be of good quality. The foundation was set up by the parents of Olubumi Omotayo Adedayo. It was their way of turning the pain of losing an only child into a blessing for thousands of other children. During his lifetime, Bumi loved education and would go to great lengths to support anyone who wanted to learn, no matter where they lived or what their circumstances were. He believed every child has a right to quality education and spent his time and resources living this belief. To Bumi, it was all or nothing. His good intent still lives on through the works of Bumi Adedayo Foundation. Finally, the loss of one child has become the gain of many children. The foundation and its partners have invested heavily in providing school infrastructure, including the renovation of 2 schools, Yaba Model Nursery and Primary School and Nathan Nursery and Primary School, both in Surulere, Lagos State. This immediately increased the enrollment rate of the schools by over 50%. Students became motivated to learn while teachers were also not left behind. As a result of our work at Yaba Model Nursery and Primary School in 2016, the school emerged as the best school in Lagos State, while our second adopted school, Nathan Nursery and Primary School, followed suit in 2018. In order to bridge identified gaps in assessing ICT education, Bumi Adedayo ICT Center, a 40-seater state-of-the-art ICT laboratory with power backup solution, was set up for 5 cluster schools in Surulere in 2017. The laboratory enabled children access quality computer education while in primary schools and also reduced the travel time and the safety implication of traveling from their schools to the central ICT center. To solve the problem of quality education and improve the learning outcome of primary education, the foundation embarked on a 12-month retraining annual program that helps to boost the competencies of classroom teachers, head teachers, and assistant head teachers. These trainings seek to empower caregivers with the required competencies to help children learn effectively. As of 2018, the foundation had trained 300 classroom teachers. Currently, with the support of Google and other partners, the foundation will be training over 1,000 teachers for the 2019-2020 academic session. As a result of the Bumi Adedayo Foundation trainings, over 45,000 students will be able to access better education across 98 primary schools in Lagos State annually.
I'll be attending this training, Bumi Adedayo Foundation training, for about 5 times now. In the 4th training, I was able to learn on how to place my classroom rules in a strategic place boldly, so that the children, they'll be able to know it, they'll be familiar with it, so that they will not fall into making mistakes of disobeying the classroom rules.
Bumi Adedayo Foundation has really been a big help to me as a teacher. Being a teacher has not been so easy so far, but with the training I've gotten through Bumi Adedayo Foundation, I have learned how to carry the students along, like getting them things like anytime they do something in class, I cheer them on by saying, "You have done well, nice work. You are not doing so well. Why don't you try to improve and be like Femi here that's right beside you?"
And the seminar has been helpful in the sense that the things we are learning here are not things that are entirely new to us, but I discovered that we found a better way of addressing some issues. When teachers are brought closer to each other like this, there is something I call exchange of ideas. So the way you see things might be different from the way I'll see it. So when you bring your own perspective and I bring mine, you learn from me and I learn from you. I like this, and they should keep it up.
Creating a lifelong opportunity for children is an arduous task that can be made easier with your support. We invite you to please join the Bumi Adedayo Foundation to positively touch more lives.
So I'm calling on Nigerians. Your support is welcome anytime in all forms. It can be financial, it can be in kind, it can be in materials, it can even be in advice. Get in touch with the foundation. There's a website for the Bumi Adedayo Foundation. Support us in this very worthy intervention. It's something we're passionate about. It's something we believe will affect each and every one of us. And I am sure that if you get involved with it, it will add value to you. There will be self-satisfaction for you. And you'll actually be able to encourage others to support us. Thank you very much.
So thank you all. That was just a short video about what we do at Bumi Adedayo. And besides, that video is was shot in 2019. Yes, 2019. The impact has increased so tremendously, and we are proud of what we have done as a foundation. So on this note, I would love to bring on board. We already have our speaker in the house. That's Aramide Kayode. She's already in here with us, and she's going to take us on a journey on how we can become a transformational teacher in the works that we do as educators in the classroom. But before her, our executive director, Miss Kemi Odedeyi, is here with us this afternoon and would love to officially welcome us ourselves and give us a charge as we go on this voyage. So Miss Kemi Odedeyi, please, if you can hear me, kindly unmute yourself and deliver your opening and welcome address.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, John. Good afternoon, Aramide. Thank you all for being here. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to learn. As somebody who is an educationist at heart and with qualification, I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn from Aramide, because I also know that if I had learned some of these things years ago, I probably have been a better educator when I was involved in teaching. And I know that with opportunities like this, we would be able to do more. And I know that one of the benefits of having Aramide around is for us to learn, how can we do what we are doing better? How can we help our children? How can we improve education? So for me, I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I know that as such to everybody too as well. I know that there's need to do more. So I want to encourage everyone to make use of this opportunity. Take as much note as possible. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. No question is too big. No question is too small. So please, understand that some of these things are to just ensure that we do better as an organization, as individuals, and as teachers of the future of tomorrow. So thank you everyone for coming on board, and I hope you have more to learn. Thank you, Aramide, for always offering your support and for coming on board with us. And thank you, John, for coordinating this as usual. Thank you very much. Well done, everyone.
Thank you so much, man. That was very short and powerful. And that was Miss Kemi Odedeyi, our executive director at the foundation. As we move on, you get to know that she's such an amazing person and who is very passionate about education. So I can see Aramide already bossed me. She's itching to share these very insightful messages to us as educators. So please, Aramide, just give us a few minutes as we just take them take them a brief about what we do as a foundation. To most of them, when I looked at registration analytics, we had about 47% new participants. So I thought it is necessary for us to just take them through what we do as a foundation. So in the next 5 to 7 minutes, I will quickly run us through what we do as a foundation and probably give us a more updated statistics about our impact as an organization. As you all may already be aware of, we are Bumi Adedayo Foundation. Um, Most people call us BAF. Yes, we are passionate about our works as an NGO, and we operate in the public in the primary education space, and that's where we are, and that's where we are passionate about. So over the years, as a foundation, our vision really is to improve learning outcomes of primary education in Nigeria, and we do it in all forms. We are not how will I put it? We are so passionate about what we do. We work with teachers, we work with school leaders, we work with children. Of course, we work with partner organizations to design tailor suits interventions or solutions that will address very practical and real life needs. So as a foundation, we do not just go about designing programs or projects. They are all based on facts, years of research, and thorough consultation with relevant stakeholders in the sector. So I believe you can see my screen. I'm kind of having issues sharing the screen, but in case it persists, I'll just quickly run us through it. Okay, why is it not sharing? A minute, please. Thank you. All right. Trying to make it a fuller screen. Okay, good, excellent. So I already talked about this, that we provide physical and digital infrastructure to primary schools. We empower school leaders, we retrain teachers, and provide scholarship and scholastic materials to children who are from indigent backgrounds and attend local or public primary schools. So as you may have heard from the video earlier, it was set up in honor of Olubumi Omotayo Adedayo, the only child of our board of the chairman of our board of trustees, Mr. and Mrs. Adedayo. So it was a very painful experience for the family, but then decided to turn the pain of losing him to the joy of many children and many people in the educational sector. And that's why we are here today. But prior to his death, he loved education in all its forms, and he gave it all out to ensure that every child benefits from quality education. So over the years, since we were set up in 2016, and since then we've done a lot of projects. The video you watched earlier now was our first project, which was called Professional Development Training for Teachers. We went to give scholarships. We have done CITPS training in 2019. We did a school leadership mentoring program in 2019 also. During COVID-19, we came up with webinar series for educators where we went on a 7-week journey to empower educators with the right skills to make impact even while they are at home. So we have helped 4 children, and happily they are all from public primary schools to access scholarship in international schools in Nigeria. These are the images of 3 of them, and 2 of them are already in their final year, while one of them is just in year 8. That's like GSS 2, if we were to call it in our own way. And we didn't know them from anywhere. We did an exam for them, they passed, and our partner organizations, Nyanda Academy, Queensland College, and City of Knowledge Academy in Ijebu-Ode came and then gave them full 6-year scholarship courtesy. So like CITPST, we trained a lot of teachers in different areas of pedagogic skills across 75 schools in 5 local governments areas of Lagos State. The results have been amazing. You can check up our websites or our YouTube pages to get some of these impacts. We also gathered the school leaders. Well, we believe that school leaders also play a very huge role in the kind of teachers that we churn out and the kind of things they do with our children in the classroom. So we empower them for we camp them for about 2 3 days and expose them to the nitty-gritty of leadership in the educational sector. And it was very powerful. We have the Commissioner of Education who was there to even address them and give them a charge. We had people from SUBEB and the rest who were also in attendance. It was very, very intensive and very, very powerful. Like I said earlier, during COVID-19, we empowered over 1,000 teachers through our webinar series for educators. Last year, we thought we needed to do more than just teaching them how to teach. We went around about creating and teaching them how to create content. We called it the Tech Relevant Teacher Project. We empowered over 648 teachers from 216 schools precisely, gave laptops to some schools, about 30 of them, mentored 60 of the teachers, and we also created what we call a learning management system for pupils. So I'll share the link later where pupils who are in primary 6 can log on to access courses for free, courtesy of our founders. Yes, late last year too, which I believe some of you may have benefited from it, we had SEPEM. SEPEM means Subject Enhancement Program in Mathematics, where we trained math teachers in different areas of math proficiencies so that they can produce critical thinkers and they can, stop teaching math the abstract way. We even helped them with instructional materials. So these are some of the things we have done when it comes to infrastructure. As you can see, we have set up a library. We have set up a 40-seater ICT center. We have given laptops to schools. We have even given some schools their own e-learning portal. 3 schools, in fact. This is the before and after of Yaba Model Nursery and Primary School. It was a complete mess before we came in, but the school today is like, I don't know, it was the best school. One of them was the best school in 2016. And that one was the best school in 2018 in terms of infrastructure. It's a good place to see. Just go by somewhere in Nathan Street in Ojuelegba. You see these 2 schools that we have renovated, courtesy of the foundation and the partners. So I'll tell us a bit around this much later, where we have, some of you have already used our LMS to access quality learning. So go to our LMS. We have quality contents there for teachers for free of charge. We also have our BEEP. BEEP means BAF Electronic Evaluation Portal, where you can measure and track the performance of your teacher as a school head over time. It's based on international parameters, and it's a useful tool that teachers can use to track performances, know which areas to be strengthened, know which area to reinforce, and so that it's not too available to the public now, but this year we're going to launch it out for the public, and it's going to be a very useful tool that can bless the sector in Nigeria and even across Africa as a continent. So I think these are some of the impacts our reach so far. Trained over 4-5 teachers, over 582 school heads, schools reached, 419 school managers. We've organized over 150 training workshops, 2 leadership boot camps, scholarships, and more than 300,000 children have now been impacted because of the teachers that we have trained. So we've got some awards and recognitions that has kept us going forward, and we know that there's still more to come even as we launch out bigger in this year 2022. So these are some of our partners, and these are people that have helped us so far to do the works that we have done. We cannot just but give them credits for the tremendous contribution they have made in making the sector what it is today. So let me quickly tell us briefly about Aramide. I know most of you have already read her profile on our Instagram page. Yes, so Aramide is the founder of Talent Mind Academy, and also an NGO that provides quality education and better opportunities to children from low-income communities. She also works as the head of learning at Thornton, where she designs engaging and interactive learning experience for young people who want to transition into technology. She is a first-class graduate of economics at Covenant University. and also an alumni of the prestigious Harvard Graduate School of Education. Her works in education space have been featured in numerous international platforms, including Malala Funds, Global Education Partnership Funds, where she was listed as one of the 10 people around the globe that is transforming education, CGTN Europe, Global Citizen, Garden, and the rest of that. So our works also in addition to our works that Aramide does in the learning and education sector, she has dedicated her time to mentoring teenagers and young women to avoid some of the mistakes that adults have made or are prone to make by living a life of excellence. She has authored 2 books, and she's hoping and dreaming that one day every child will be able to access education for all. So on this note, I would love to invite Aramide to deliver a speech to us. So Aramide, you have the floor. I'm going to make you a co-host now so that you can. Thank you so much, Aramide. And I'll stop sharing.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope we're doing well, and I hope our day is coming along well. Please give me a moment to share my screen. Can we see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Amazing. All right, so good afternoon, everyone, once again. It's such a great honor to be here. Thank you so much, BAF, and thank you, John, for this opportunity. Once again, I'm grateful. My name is Aramide Kayode, and today I'm going to be speaking on teaching for lasting impact, the characteristics of a transformational educator. So don't worry, this is not going to be a session of do's and don'ts of how to be a good teacher, right? I will just share my story and I'll just talk about my work. And I hope that from my journey, you'll be able to pick 1 or 2 things or more. Okay, so let's start from how I even got into the space. I remember I graduated in 2018 and I lived in Lagos, but after I graduated from uni, I wanted to teach. I didn't like the way the Nigerian education system was, and I wanted to do something about it. And so I went to teach. And the first day I got into my classroom, this was what the classroom was like, right? And this number of children that are here is just a few compared to the number of children that I met in my classroom. When I got into my classroom for the first time, I had 74 children in my class, and it was a primary 2 classroom. And I had to teach children that range from ages 6 to 16. So I had a 6-year-old in my class, my primary 2 class, and I also had a 16-year-old in my primary 2 class. And this was their learning condition, right? If we had the whole picture of the classroom, you would have seen the blackboard as well. Some parts are, it's a blackboard, not a whiteboard. Some parts are chewed, cut away. And this is the learning condition that the children that I worked with were exposed to. And before then, I'd never seen a classroom like this before. I grew up in the average Nigerian background. I went to school, and I went to private school. So I didn't think that any school would look like this in the first place, or there'll even be a classroom that was not styled or that was not looking good in the first place, right? Or a classroom that was filled with just chairs without tables for children to write. And if they had to write, they had to share a table. But the crazy part was that there were 74 children in this condition. And for me, the one thing that came to mind was, how am I going to teach in this classroom? I was coming in to create change, and it was a difficult scenario to create change because I was in a condition that I'd never lived in before. And I was meeting with kids that I never knew who were in a condition that I could not even put myself in because I didn't know what it felt like. But the children knew, and I didn't know how I was going to make change for them. The children I had in my classroom suffered from malnutrition. They didn't have teachers who, in the first place, cared about them. And more than not caring about them, the teachers even talked down at them. And this didn't just happen in the school alone, right? They had situations where even in their houses, their face me, I face you houses, their families also talked down on them. So left and right, they were filled or surrounded with people who talked down at them and told them that they would maybe not amount to anything, and they were olodos, dollars in English, right? And that was the condition I was faced with. And, you know, miraculously for me, when I started teaching, I came across this video, which I'm going to play right now. And I'm sure that we have all, one way or the other, seen this video, but let's just take time to watch it. And we'll go ahead to share. I'll pick just a few people, probably 2 people, to just share what really stood out for them in the video. Sorry, let me know if you can hear the sound. Did you hear the sound, please? Can you hear the sound? All right, thank you.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it. They should learn it. Case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is gonna be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things, like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. They said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class because I am the best teacher and you are the best students. They put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in a desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
All right. I'm sure we all enjoyed the presentation. So now I will just pick probably 1 or 2 people who are willing to share one thing that stood out for them. So if you want to share, just raise up your hand and I'll just call your name. Just one thing that you learned from this video. Okay, Mr. Bayode Michael. You can go ahead, just unmute and share.
One thing I like about your presentation is the passion the lady had for the personal lives of our students. she saw that to be able to accomplish much as a teacher, we must be concerned with about the personal life of our students, not just to come to the classroom, teach, and we want to be sure of what they are going through behind the scene at home. If possible, take steps to assist them.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And when you shared that, it just made me remember when I was, the time when I initially started teaching, and I had, difficult students in my classroom, or students who were not easy to mold. And I'm sure we all have students like that in our classroom. And I remember that for all of them, the only way I was able to achieve success in working with the children and helping them to pick what I wanted them to learn part-time was when I showed interest in them. And I'm sure even for us personally, right, we are more receptive to people who are concerned about us compared to people who just want us to do things without even being concerned about us. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think I saw, okay, she dropped her hand. All right, so I'm not sure if this is Miss or Mrs., but Miss Lola Arowale, please, would you like to go ahead next? You can just unmute and speak. And while you speak, sorry, John, I'm unable to share my screen. So can you help me with that? Thank you. Okay. Hi, Lola, please just unmute and go ahead. Okay, just to save our time, Mr. Adam Busari, please, you can go ahead. Just unmute and speak. Oh, she can't unmute. Oh, I don't know.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon.
As part what I learned from the video is that I learned that however may be, whatever we put in place with the facilitator, the teacher, and the learner, there should be good relationship. There must be good relationship. So if the learner did not have any relationship with the teacher, whatever the teacher is teaching, they don't see any meaning with it. You just say, as just the woman just said, you just okay, use your time. So continue with our own. So whatever effort the teacher may put in place, if there is no good relationship that the learner show that okay, we'd like to hear from you. We know that when we meet you, we are learning good things from you. So the learner will not show any interest in the facilitator. So I learned that from the video.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sorry, John, I'm still not able to share my screen.
Yeah, sorry, Ara. I think it's network issue. I made you the host earlier. I don't know if that's again so I can be able to share your screen.
Oh,
Please
you're
confirm.
still the host?
Yes.
Okay.
Please confirm that now.
Yes, I'm able to share my screen now.
Yeah,
All
thank
right. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone, for sharing what you've learned. But I think that one thing that is standing out for everyone is the need to be concerned about our learners. The need to be concerned about even beyond school, right? They need to be concerned about even the personal lives of the people that we work with, because that's the way that we are going to be able to create the kind of teaching condition that they need to learn at the time. And so I'm just going to run through the 3 things that I've learned so far as a teacher and as someone who works with students. And before I just share these 3 tips that have really worked for me, I would like to talk about my story of when I was in secondary school. So I remember when I was in secondary school, I left primary school 18 mathematics, I didn't like mathematics. And, you know, when I was younger, it was just a popular saying that math was a difficult subject. So it was just, you know, we just didn't like math. Like, it was hard to find someone who liked math. And even when I was trying to get into secondary school, I got A in all my, you know, I got an A in all my exams, and I got an F in maths. So I failed maths brutally, and I got very excellent results in the other subjects. But when I got to secondary school, I kept hating maths, and I knew that, okay, as long as you don't fail, then you'll be able to move to the next class. So I was okay with getting E. So I was just always getting like an E in mathematics. And I would get A in the other classes, but keep getting an E in mathematics. And I remember when I got to SS1, and you know, when I was in secondary school, I went to a boarding school. So when you get less than 70% in a particular subject, they always flog us. So for every time in my head, I was like, okay, I'll get A in all the subjects, but this math, I just won't pass it. So I was always preparing my hand to collect 3 strokes of cane, because for each subject to get less than 70, you get 3 strokes of cane. And so I would take, at some point, I stopped feeling the pain of the cane, because it was easier to get 3 strokes of cane than to pass maths for me. And so I stopped feeling the pain of the cane, and I would just, you know, after I come back with my report card, I would just stretch my hand and I was ready to just collect the cane and just move on with life and still keep getting my E, as long as getting an E was not a problem for me. And when I got to SS1, they changed my maths teacher, and they brought in Mr. Yomi. And so when Mr. Yomi came, he started to break down mathematics in a way that for someone like me and majority of the other students in my classroom that liked English and probably understood English because it was our native language, it started to break it down for us in a way that it was as simple as English was for us. So when he came, he started to use what we had interest in to teach us a subject that we did not have interest in. And because of that, it was easier for us to now buy into mathematics and like, oh, mathematics is fun. And I remember when he came for the first time, he said something to us that I will never even forget right now. And he said that it's easier to get 100% in mathematics than it is to get 100% in English. Because mathematics is objective, right? And English is subjective. So if I give my essay to someone, I can give my essay to 2 English teachers, get 60 with one, and with the other English teacher, I might get 90 or something, but I would never get 100 because English is always going to be subjective. And that's because English depends on how our perspective look like, our experiences, and how we think about things. But mathematics is a principle. Once you sow, you always reap in that sense. So once you add 2 and 2, no matter if it is matchstick you're adding, or 2 chairs, or 2 tables, or whatever tools you're adding, add 2 with another 2 and you're going to get 4. It's just mathematical principle. And when he said that, it now became easier for us to buy in that, wow, that means I can actually get 100 if I actually put in the work. And I started practicing maths, right? And not just me, right? The other people in my class as well. We started practicing maths. And at some point, it got to a point that I loved math to the extent that even if I do not get the right answer, I enjoyed the process of just solving it. Like, even if I don't get it, I enjoy the process of solving. And because I enjoy the process of solving, even when I don't get the right answer, it was going to be easier for me to go back again and say, oh, I didn't get it right. Where did I make the error? Let's take the process again until I got it. And there became an internal motivating force for me to learn maths and know maths, because I had a teacher who took interest in me enough to teach me a subject that I did not like, was something that I had interest in. And I remember the first day that we had our CA, and I had 18/20 in mathematics. It was just like a miracle. Like, how on earth did I have 18 in maths? My parents were so shocked. And every single time I think about what changed for me to love maths, I mean, I kept on loving maths to the extent that I studied economics and I got A in all the mathematical subjects I did in economics. Right. And that was because of one teacher. And that's just to make it know that as a teacher, you have the power in your hand to change the perspective of a child. And that's the truth. You have the power, like never forget that as a teacher, you have the power to change how a child actually thinks. So if you have a child that comes in, like no matter how much difficulty I thought math was and the perspective I had of mathematics, even since primary school. So for as long as I had that perspective, this man, because he was interested in me as a teacher and interested in me as a person, interested in my learning, he was able to make me love a subject that I hated. So you can imagine how much power you have as a teacher to even change the character and the behavioral pattern of the students that you work with. And, you know, one thing that has always worked for me as a teacher, and one thing that I will always say to every teacher who wants to become a transformational educator, because becoming a transformation educator is not the same thing as just becoming a good educator or becoming a good enough educator. An educator is someone that teaches, right? And what makes you a good educator is that you're able to teach that subject in a way that your students can understand. But what makes you a transformational educator is more than teaching, is beyond teaching, is being able to create the kind of, you know, a thriving environment for the students that you work with beyond school, beyond, you know, beyond the classroom, beyond A to Z, beyond mathematics, beyond English, being able to create a thriving learning condition and a thriving mindset for the people that you work with. And that's what being a transformational educator means to me. And that's why today I will never forget Mr. Yomi, not because I didn't have good teachers in school or because I didn't go to a good school. I had great teachers that even had good certifications and, you know, did all sorts of things and had a lot of certificates. But Mr. Yomi made the difference for me because he was a transformational educator. And what made him a transformational educator? Not that he had all the mathematical degrees, or I don't even know if he graduated from uni in the first place, right? But I knew that Mr. Yomi had interest in me and he paid attention to me. He paid attention to my interests because, you know, I was even able to make me learn maths in the first place. He wanted to know, okay, what's she interested in? Oh, she's interested in English. So if I'm able to use English to teach her math, then she'll be able to buy in easily. And that's what really makes us a transformational educator. Thinking about how can I impact the life of my students even beyond this. And what Mr. Yomi did for me and what every teacher has the power to do is that Mr. Yomi taught me that there's nothing that's too hard as long as you put your mind to it, right? As long as you have interest in this and you put your mind to it, you're able to learn it. And, you know, today I'm able to graduate with a first class from economics, which has a lot of mathematical components. Why? Because somebody believed in me as a child, as a young child, my teacher, not somebody, my teacher believed in me as a young child. And that went a long way and has continued to influence me, even up till now, like how many years down the line, I'm still changed by that one teacher. And I'm sure we all had one teacher that either made us to like a subject or made us to hate a subject. And it makes all of the difference. So if you had that teacher that wield that kind of influence in you, how much more you as a teacher, where you have the power in your hand right now, and you can change things or you can decide to make things worse. So 3 things that I learned. I worked in the classroom for 2 years, right? And before then, I'd worked with students, I'd worked with individuals who I taught, but now I've still gone ahead to work with children and work with students, well, in the non-profit space. But I taught in the classroom for 2 years. And one thing that I would say to everyone that wants to make an impact as a teacher is, number 1, always practice what you preach. So, you know, we just watched the video, and that was one thing that she made emphasis on. But I would just quickly like to share the story of 2 of the students that I work with. So I remember when I started teaching, I used to come to class very early, and, you know, when my students come late, I'm like, why are you coming late to school? I always used to, you know, try to reprimand them for coming late, basically, you know, and say, Can't you see them coming early? Like, what excuse do you have? You don't have any family, you don't have anything, you're supposed to be in school as early as possible. And so at some point, I slipped and I started coming late to school. It wasn't too late, but me that used to come before assembly, I would come in during assembly. And the first thing is that the children that you work with, they are watching you. And if you work with children, or if you're even a parent here, you will know by now that children they listen when you talk, but they don't do as you say all the time. They actually do as you do. And that's why some things that we don't teach these children, that's why some things that parents don't teach the children, whether good or bad habits, they actually pick it up because they see what you do and they want to reflect that as well. And that's one thing. So I started coming late. And one culture that I built in my classroom that I'm grateful for is the culture of accountability. So I made myself accountable to my students in such a way that I know that now in the normal Nigerian classroom or the normal African classroom, you can't tell a teacher that, oh, you came late. But that was the culture I created. And that's because nobody should be above the rule. So if you're setting a classroom rule, why should you be above your classroom rule? Like, are you not a member of the classroom? Like, are you not supposed to be a member just that you're the teacher, right? Are you not a member of the classroom? So when you tell your students, don't come late to school, why should you, as the teacher who is supposed to set an example for them, why should you now be the one breaking the rule? Like, what example are you setting for them? And I created a culture of accountability where if my kids were wrong, I would say what you did was wrong. But not just me telling them that what you did was wrong. If there was something I did that was wrong, they could also walk up to me and say, Ms. Armide, you did this, but you shouldn't have. Yeah, right, respectfully. But I created a culture where I always call them my kids. Yeah, so I created a culture where my students could always talk to me and could always say, this thing you did wasn't cool, or you shouldn't have done this way, you should have done it this way, or something. So that there's a culture of accountability. We're all in this classroom and we're all in this together. And I know that that's one thing, the video we just watched, what she said with that person, she said that always create an environment for your students to thrive. And in an environment where students are going to thrive, there needs to be accountability. There needs to be accountability. And I started coming late. I remember that day, one of the students in my class walked up to me and said, Mr. Amide, you have been coming late to school lately, and you're not supposed to come late to school lately. And for me as a teacher, I felt like, oh my God, maybe the ground should just open, and just because I'm like, wow, like I'm the one who put this thing in place, and I'm the one going ahead to break it again. And because of that, I was able to correct. But because of that, my students now knew that this person is not just telling me what they cannot do, right? They're not just telling me, she's not just telling me what she cannot do. So because somebody had corrected me, I had to listen to the correction. And it brought a new heart that my students had for me. And so if it was now easier for me to correct them and say, okay, this thing you did was wrong, because they knew that nobody in the class, either the teacher or the student, nobody was beyond correction and nobody knew it all. And so it was good for me that I put myself in that space. First of all, it was a testament to the fact that I was raising children that were outspoken, which is good because we're supposed to raise children who are not just A+ students, but students who can also thrive. And they need to speak to thrive in life. And so every single time, I see the importance of me listening to Mohammed that day when he walked up to me to correct me and correcting myself after he corrected me. And I saw how that changed the behavior of these children. And I saw how it taught them that even beyond 2 + 2 and all of that, number one, nobody knows everything, right? That was number one lesson. Nobody knows everything. Nobody knows everything. Nobody is beyond anything. And sometimes, even we, the strongest person, even I, the strongest student, or even I, the first position, would always need help. And there is nothing wrong with that. And, for me, it was just a good life lesson that I was happy that I was able to teach the children. So it's always important that as a teacher, make sure you practice what you preach. So if you're telling them, don't come late, don't be the one to come late. If you're telling them, don't eat in class, don't be the one to eat in class. If you're telling them attend assembly, don't be the one to not attend assembly, right? If you're also telling them to probably do their homeworks, don't be the one to not look at the homework, or don't be the one to not mark the homework, because it goes a long way. And children will always do what we do. They will always look at us. They will always want to act the way we act. Another story I remember that that sounds really good to share when I think about practicing what you preach is the story of Rashida. I remember that day I tried to prepare for my quantitative and verbal class, and I tried to solve this particular quantitative question. We know how quantitative can be. One answer is always connected to the other, and if you don't get one right, you might not be able to get the other. And so I tried different ways, addition, subtraction. The answer wasn't coming out. And so I said, okay, there are two things involved. It's either I get into my classroom and form teacher and teach nonsense and just go like nothing happened, or actually come to my classroom, try it again, and ask my students to actually help me out. And so I decided that, okay, I was not going to fool myself or fool anybody. So let me just come to the classroom and share and say where the shoe is really pinching me and get help. And so I got into the classroom that day and I gave my students the work. I told them that I tried to attempt it, but I could not attempt it, which can be a very difficult thing for a teacher to do. But I think that as teachers, if we understand that we are not superior, so in as much as we are older than these children and we are there to guide them as their teachers, that does not make us better than them, right? That does not make us better than them. And there are some things that they would know. There are some things, I'm sure that as teachers here, there are some things that we've learned from our students. So being a teacher doesn't make you, it doesn't make you anything better, because we are all humans. Even the children, they have their rights, they have their emotions, just like you do as well. And so I shared that, okay, this is where this is, and I'm not able to move forward. I got stuck here and here. And I gave it to my students to try to attempt it. We kept attempting. We literally spent the whole class trying to do this. We weren't getting the answer. And one of my students came out and she's like, okay, it looks like there was an error. She tried to solve it, but she had tried different ways. And apparently she got the answer, the answer that I did not get. And when we checked it, we later saw that, okay, there was an error in the numbers that was written originally. But I think that for me, my students were able to learn the humility, right? The fact that you can't have everything all together, like I said, and there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. This morning, I was thinking about how as children, if you're a nursery teacher here, you'll be able to relate more. When as children, you give them a book to color, they get the coloring book, they just color it, right? They don't get all the edges, or they don't color everything entirely, but they color it. They might not even be careful while coloring. They might color outside the line, but they get the work done and they turn it in and they submit it. And as a nursery teacher, you can't fail them, right? Because they're children. And I think about how we always wait for things to be perfect as adults to submit to submit our work, right? We always try to wait for everything to be perfect to teach the children. But the truth is that when you are trying to prepare for a class and you're not able to move past it, and you've tried to move past it, it is okay, absolutely okay, to ask your students to try it out and learn from them. And that's just to create an environment where there's exchange in learning. So you're not just the only one, because I believe that as a teacher, you're not just supposed to be telling them everything to do. Because if you're telling your student everything to do, how do you expect them to think when they are not in the classroom? How do you expect them to thrive when you're not there anymore? So as teachers, it's important that we are teaching children how to also create their own solutions. And that's what makes, an educator transformational. And as much as you practice what you preach and care for the students and try to create learning conditions, something else that is very important is investing in yourself and caring for yourself. And I always like to think about it as boundaries. When I work with children in low-income communities, and if you work with children that have a lot of very funny background here, you know that there's an emotional experience that comes from working with these children. And there are numerous stories that I have to tell on that. I particularly remember the story of a particular girl, Favor, in my class. She had run away from home. She lived with her auntie and her uncle, and she had run away from home because she was maltreated back and forth. And she ran away from home. I think the day after school, she didn't return back home. And I was sleeping one day in my house, and I just heard someone from the window, Miss Haramde, like whispering by 4 a.m. And and it was just scary because I'm like, who is this? Number one. Then what are you doing here in my house by 4 a.m. early in the morning? And that could have translated to anything, because if anything had happened to her on her way to my house, somebody would have said, oh, she was coming to my house or something, right? That could have translated to anything. But she got to my house and, we first had a conversation. But first of all, that speaks to a relationship. There was an existing relationship. So as Rita Person said, and as we have all shared on this call, it's important that you're not just invested in. It's great to have students who are A students and students who are passing mathematics and doing good in school. But it's always important to build relationships with your students and get to know them even beyond school. People are actually going through a lot, and children too actually go through a lot, not just adults. And if we don't build relationship with them, then we'll never really know what's happening beyond that. How many times have you gone ahead to check on a student that was doing well in mathematics before, but later became relaxed or lackadaisical? Like, have you ever checked on the students that, oh, what's happening? You used to be this and that. You used to be well behaved. You used to be this, but now you're not doing well as much as you were doing before. But showing that concern builds a relationship. And I feel like in the first place, that was why Favor was able to run to my house, because she just felt like there was no other person she could talk to. And as a teacher, it's beyond teaching, honestly. It's beyond teaching. I definitely know that the students I work with, all 74 of them, there will never be one of them that will forget me because of the trail of impact that I left in their lives. Because even when they will get 0 in their test and when they will fail, and I will teach them, and they will not even remember anything again, there was nothing that changed the fact that this woman cares for me, or this woman loves me, or this woman has an interest in me as a person, not just academic, okay? And that was why Favor would even run to my house in the first place. And when she came to my house, we had a conversation. Why are you running from home? We talked about it. And yeah, the story didn't end well because she was sent back to the village. But the truth is that there was a relationship that happened before Favor came. And I had so many other children who lost their parents when, they were my students. I had children whose houses got burnt. Like their houses they just woke up and the house was gone. It was burnt overnight. And children who went through different sort of abuse from their parents or neighbors, or just different kind of harassment. And this created a burden, right, while working with these children, because there's an emotional burden that comes with all of this. And something I always like to say is invest in yourself. So there were times that as a teacher, I took time out of my classroom, time with myself alone, right? Time with myself alone, time to care for myself, time to release from the burden, right? I enjoyed my holidays. I was not on holiday and still trying to mark scripts or something. I was always trying to recoup myself. So even as a teacher, it's helpful to always invest in yourself. And beyond even taking care of yourself or giving yourself a treat once in a while, as a teacher, it's important to develop yourself professionally. And that's why I'm even so proud of every teacher that is on this call now, because you see the importance of having these conversations or joining calls like this or taking, online seminars like this or webinars like this. And you see the importance, and much more than that, you see the importance of even applying everything that you're learning. So as a teacher, there's always going to be a cap on what you can do when you don't know. Right. So the more you know, the more you'll be able to do. And I recall when I was teaching in the school, I was able to do more for the children that I work with, because I was always attending every week. I always had a training that I was going to attend as a teacher. Either it was on, either it was a physical training or it was online or I was taking a course, but there was always a learning process going on. So as a teacher, in as much as you're pouring out to your student and you're telling your student, learn this, do this, you also need to invest in yourself professionally, develop yourself personally, invest in yourself by caring for yourself and, taking time out if you need to avoid being burnt out as a teacher. Right? Read books as a teacher. There are a lot of free courses that you can take. There are a lot of free, learning platforms that you can just check out and you'll be able to access. The video we watch, the video is on YouTube. Right? You don't pay to have access to YouTube. So you can always go there, check for, teacher videos, how I can be a better teacher. You can even always Google, and learn a lot of things as a teacher, because the more you know, the more you'll be able to do. And, the story I wanted to share earlier was when I started teaching and I wanted to change the way dictation was going on. So it was surprising for me to get into my classroom for the first time and see that the way I was taught dictation in primary school is still the same way they're teaching dictation right now. And, when I got to my classroom, I wanted to change it. And I started a crossword puzzle thing that changed for my kids. And the only reason why I was able to change it was because I knew more and I'm able to now do more. So, but when I started it, I remember the teacher in my classroom kicked against it. And she said to me, you can't change this because this was not the way they taught us to teach children dictation in my teacher training college in 1960. And for me, it was surprising to see that you are preparing children for the future. Like, this is 2022. You are preparing children for, say, 2030, right? You're preparing the future. And you're using a 1960 method to teach children. So how do you want them to be relevant to fit into that future if you're using a very old and a technique that necessarily doesn't work again because the world has evolved to teach children? And so as a teacher, the more you invest in yourself, the more you know things, the more you'll be able to do more as a teacher, the more you even be able to earn more. And that's the truth as a teacher. So make sure you always invest in yourself. Then the last thing is allowing your students to thrive. As a teacher, I always saw myself as a facilitator, honestly. I would get into the classroom, introduce the topic on Monday. On Tuesday, I would give my students a work to do. So we had mathematics every day. When I was teaching, I taught in a public school. So we had maths every day. And when I teach them maths on Monday, if they would not understand, I would take it again on Tuesday. But after Tuesday, I was done teaching. So on Wednesday, they're giving tasks. So like I said, invest in yourself. So always learn. There are a lot of resources. You want to teach fractions. Please, it's already old to be drawing fractions on the board. Yeah, when you're introducing it, yeah, it's good to have that thing. But right now, you can bring an orange to the classroom, right? Divide the orange. And okay, this is 1/2. This is 1/4. And there are more very interesting and relatable ways to teach fraction right now compared to when you were younger. So you don't have to use what you were used to, what they used to raise you, to raise, the children that you work with, because things have changed. And if you're preparing children for the future as a teacher, then you shouldn't be using the old techniques to prepare children for the future. So always make sure that as a teacher, you're always creating a learning condition that can allow your students to thrive. And like the picture I shared initially, that might not be how your classroom looks like, but that was the classroom I had. And I had to think about, how can I make learning interesting for these children, even in this classroom that is not interesting? And that was when I started to learn more and more and more. And I saw that there are different ways I could make learning come alive. And there were different things I had to put in place and do for the children that I work with, just to make sure they can thrive. And I'm sure that as a teacher, you know that one thing that is most important is that as much as you have 8 students in your class, it's always important to know that education is, in fact, quality education is a combination of intelligence and character. And when there's intelligence without character, you are going to have students who are smart, but are going to use the smartness that they have for wrong things. I mean, I can imagine the guys, so the children I work with, they come from low-income communities, and there are a lot of Yahoo boys there. And, you know, when I meet these children for the first time, they always want to be a Yahoo boy because they don't think that there's anything better out there, right? But one thing I noticed is that the trend is that the smartest of them are the ones that actually want to do these things. And if they actually dive into do these things, they'll actually make a lot of money because they're very smart, right? But what education does, what quality education does, is that it makes them smart, but it also makes them to be considerate. It also makes them to value honesty and integrity. It also makes them to be empathetic and to know that this is wrong. And I have a choice to either use my smartness to do good or to use my smartness to do bad, which is what character helps us to do. So always, always, always as a teacher, allow your students to thrive. And how can you allow your students to thrive when you don't even know them in the first place? So it's important to build relationship. And this is what makes you a transformational teacher. Number one, practice what you preach. Number two, invest in yourself, care for yourself, invest in your development, invest in your growth. And number three, always, always, always create an environment that allows your children, your students to thrive. Let them know that even beyond school, Mrs. Rachel or Mr. Fola cares for me. Let them know that even beyond, you know, when she said, you know, when Rita Person said that the child got 2, or I think he got minus 18 or something, right? But having a +2 there helps to see that, okay, if I can get a +2, then I can increase this too. And maybe I'm not that bad, right? Maybe I'm not that bad, but I imagine the destabilization that I know the destabilization I went through every time I saw 0 on my screens, right? But how can we allow our children, our students to thrive when we don't even know them in the first place? And so these are the basic lessons I like to share. And I would just like to quickly run through some of the impact stories from the work that I've done. So I'll share first the story of Rakib. And, you know, I remember when Rakib came to my class for the first time, he wanted to be a Yahoo boy. And he was a very smart person. He was 13 years old in my primary 2 class, and he wanted to be a Yahoo boy. Why? Because his brothers are, you know, they are very successful Yahoo boys who have built houses and are doing well. And he just didn't think that there was anything better to do. And so that was why he wanted to become a Yahoo boy. And because of that, so first of all, how did I know what he wanted to be? I built a relationship with him. And I knew that, okay, this is where this boy is going, and this is what he wanted to do. And because of that, I organized a mentorship program. So I did a mentorship program. What I did was that I lived in a low-income, I stayed in a low-income community, but I started to bring in some of my friends and some of the people that I knew who have actually grown up in a low-income communities, but have grown to do exemplary work, who have grown to become responsible people. So I brought them into my classroom and they started to share their story. And after 1 month of doing this mentorship program with my kids and some of my friends that I brought in, this same boy walked up to me and he said to me, Miss Aramide, I don't want to be a Yahoo boy again. I like cutting hair and I'm going to learn how to cut hair. And Rakib went ahead, yeah. He went ahead to learn how to cut hair. And right now he has his own barbing, shop where he's able to cut hair and even teach other people, how this thing works. Also teach other people how to cut hair. But for me, is one thing that, okay, even while Rakib was doing averagely well in school and had a result that he could keep moving forward with, It's one thing to know that I have just, because I decided to be a transformational educator, I've rescued Nigeria and Africa at large, and even the world, from a potential Yahoo boy, because only God who knows what could have become of him at the end if there was nobody who believed in him enough, who built relationship with him enough, who did not castigate him for saying he innocently, wanted to do something. And because there was somebody who believed in him, who knew him and took personal interest in him, to grooming him to the person he was supposed to be. If there was nobody there, then God knows what it would have become, right? And this is the power that we have as teachers. This is the power we have as teachers. These students spend limited time with us, I think 8 hours or so, but there is a lot that we can change in those 8 hours. They show up every single day. So multiply 8 hours by a week, right? And now think about the number of hours that you have to change the lives of these children and give them a better future. But for me, it's not just even Rakib, being able to escape poverty and take care of his family and all of that, which is a good thing. But for me, it's also teaching him that, see, you can make a honest living, and it is very okay. It's very okay to make a honest living. And, it's just that even if he says that, oh, I'm not becoming a baba again, he will never go back to being a Yahoo boy or being a thief or an armed robber, because a mindset has been changed. The wrong mindset has been changed. And this is the power that every teacher has on the students. And, the story of Rabiat again is another interesting story. When I met Rabiat, she was 13 years old in primary 2, unmotivated. She didn't want to go to school. She just wanted to drop off, get married. She's a Muslim girl. Just wanted to drop off, get married, and, move on with her life, right? And I worked with her. And I remember at some point, it was a total drag having to keep her in school, having to let her understand the importance of education. But like I said initially, it's important to have personal interest in the students, personal interest. And, from the relationship I built with Rabia, speaking to her, checking in on her, letting her know that, okay, because you don't want to go to school doesn't make you a bad person, or it doesn't make you somebody that something is wrong with, right? Because honestly, if you think about it, there are people who have not even gone to school, but that does not mean their destinies were derailed, right? But education just gives us it's just a leveler that puts us on a higher stage in that sense. And so I worked with Rabiat, and after some months of working with her, she resumed. She even got like a scholarship, and now she's able to thrive in a private school, and she's doing well. And so this is also the last story, the story of Okay. There are a lot of stories, a lot of transformational stories that I have, but let's just walk through the story of Okay. So I'm going to play a video, and I'll just share the backstory of Okay before I continue, before I play the video. When I met Okay was 7 years old. So you can imagine this little girl. She's 7 years old, and now she's 8 years old. So Okay was 7 years old, and she had never been to school. There was nobody to send her to school. There was no opportunity for her to get to school. But I run an organization that puts children in school. And when we put Okay in school, she was able to improve. And why was she able to improve? We'll all see why when we're done watching the video.
So good. 94, 94, 95, 95, 96, 96, 97, 97, 98, 98, 99, 99, 1, 0, 1, on.
All right, so this, like I said, that was Okay. And first of all, this improvement was made in 1 month. So imagine a girl that's never been to school, never interacted with these numbers, never known anything before. And in 1 month, she's able to make this improvement. First of all, it comes from somewhere. I can imagine if she went to school for the first time, because I wasn't a teacher. I just sent her to school. And I can imagine if she went to school for the first time and a teacher talked down on her. You have never been to school. You will be a lodo. You are this, you are that. our teacher really never paid interest in her, I don't think she'll be able to make this progress in 1 month. I don't think so. I've worked with children, and even some children that started school, if you start teaching them, they fall behind and behind. But this is a girl that made this improvement, a girl that never been to school, and she made this improvement in just 1 month. But much more than that, she had a thriving space. See the number of people who are, excited about her. This is somebody that she had never been to school, but you can hear how confident she is. You can hear the power in her voice. You can hear how excited she is and how excited everybody that was in that space, because they were all learning together. And how excited everybody is because she had a teacher who was able to create a thriving environment and a thriving learning condition. This girl lives in a low-income community. The teacher teaches in a low-income community. So it's not because, it's a more, it's finer, or is a good school, or is a top school, or is an elite school. It's the same low-income community. But that's a teacher that made it work for Oke. And every single day, Oke will never forget that. Because it took her 1 month to learn 1 to 100, even though she didn't know anything about it. She can always do things. She can always do hard things. Like nothing is too hard. She will always find a way to learn these things. And this is just a bit, like, this is just my own story. So I can imagine how much more that can be done as a teacher if you work with these children every day. You have access to them every day. I can imagine how much you can change in their lives. Some of them, they're exposed to wrong behavioral patterns in their houses. What they see the wrong things, but they're still able to, you're still able to change this thing as their teacher. And this is the power that you have. And I hope that with everything I've shared, you'll be able to become and always invest in yourself to becoming a transformational educator. Thank you so much. So we'll just quickly take questions. Yeah. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand. I don't know what the questions aspect is like, but okay, just raise your hands, or you can just unmute and speak, or just raise your hand.
Wow. That was an excellent how do I put this presentation, and I love the fact that it is real. There are real life experiences and impact stories from the works you do. Thank you so much, Aramide. Please, can we say a word for her in the chat? Please just say a word for Aramide, for our guest speaker today. I want to see the chat buzzing. What can you say to her? What are you saying to Aramide? Oh yeah, I'm waiting. Oh yeah, those stories are just so real, so touching, and shows us the power that we have as educators to form lives. To wow, thank you so much. And this is great. Well done. Thank you. I want to see more of the comments coming in the chat box. And in like manner, if you have any question, you could just please raise up your hand, like she said, and I will unmute you for here from my own end here, and then you can she will respond to you. Meanwhile, someone earlier asked a question that says that please, is there any how one can teach without shouting at the students whom you have taught and taught without the topic sinking in, especially on maths? I'll take that again. Is there any way that one can teach without shouting at the students whom you have taught and taught without the topic sinking in, especially on maths? That's one question that we have from one of our beneficiaries. So I don't know if you want to take that now while I go to those whose hands are raised up. Oh, sorry.
All right, thank you. So I can totally relate to that. Oh my God, I remember I had that experience and I still do. And so I'll just share things that helped, and I'm sure you'll be able to make sense of it. So the truth is that just every time you have these scenarios as a teacher, or every time you teach, always put yourself in the shoes of these children. Imagine somebody's teaching you something. You just don't understand. Like, you sincerely don't understand. You're not trying to be a goat or anything. You really just sincerely don't understand. And the person is shouting at you. How would you feel as a person? If I were the one, I would not want to learn that thing again, because like, I don't understand. You're not shouting at me. I will not want to learn again, right? And this was something I knew as a teacher while teaching. So as much as possible, I tried not to shout on my kids. When I work with you, I teach you, you don't understand. I teach you, you don't understand. The truth is that children, sometimes, that's why I said you can't know everything as a teacher, and it's okay to put your students at the front line, right? So you don't have to be the spotlight, and that's fine. So there's a way you will teach that children will understand, and sometimes some children will not understand. But there's a way another child will teach that child, that child will pick it. Even before that child gets to A, B, C, gets to G, the first child has already picked it. And that was one technique that worked for me back to back. When I teach in class, my students don't understand. I teach again, they don't understand. I pair them into groups and they figure it out. And that's because these children are children. They know the things that happen. They know what they can use as example. They know the way you might not be able to make it relatable for them. They know the way they'll be able to make it relatable for one another. So that was something that worked for me. If I teach you, you don't understand. I had good teachers in my classroom that were children. So I was not the only teacher. And once again, let it be fine for you. Let it be okay. Don't let your ego stand in the way of your children learning, right? You don't have to be the spotlight, and that's fine. The goal is for the children to learn, right? So get the children that know it very well and let them teach those children. Try it. It always worked for me. It always worked for me. Children are children, so they don't always know how to play around these things. And sometimes as a teacher, you might not be able to teach it. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you as a teacher. It just means that the child didn't just get it. And that's fine. That's okay. Okay? Just get a student that knows it and pair them together. Pair-to-pair learning always works. Always. It's magical. So please try that. Instead of, don't shout at your students, please. Don't. It's not. Just imagine being shouted at. Like, nobody likes being shouted at. So don't shout at your students. Be patient and they will get it. Rome is not built in a day.
Okay, I think someone asked a question that you just answered now. Thank you so much, Aramide. The person said that is it proper to refer a student? Yeah, I think you already answered that. Like she said, you don't have to be the spotlight. I got that clearly. Even though you are the teacher, another child could teach it in a way that a child at his own level can understand better. So while somebody's hand is raised up or she is not connected to the audio, that's Babalola Rachel. So I won't be able to call her, even that if she can even hear us right now. But I have a question. Amidst all of this, especially with reference to this question of teaching and teaching and teaching all over again, how do you manage the time? I know for teachers, most of the times there's always this complaint around we have 40 minutes for a period or even less in primary school. So how do you want to manage that time and to make sure that you make the most impact in a teaching period? I hope you got that.
Yes, I did. How do you manage your time in the teaching period? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that the child who is probably struggling to learn or pick up can still get value.
Yeah. So I know that as much as possible as educators, we have limited time and we want every child. So I imagine myself in my shoe. I was teaching 74 children. See, it's not magic. The day that every child in the class picks it, I used to be very excited because children don't learn the same way. And some children will pick fast, some children will not pick fast enough. So I always try to teach the topic twice. But after that, like I said, I go pair to pair on them. I do it a whole lot because your time is constrained. Your time as a teacher, your audience with them is constrained. But these children, they don't have constrained time. When they go home, they'll still go to each other's houses and go and play. The children I work with anyways, they will still go to each other's houses to go and play. During break, they'll still be playing together and all of that. So I try to maximize this. So what I did was that I used to pair my students. So everybody had a co-learner. We call it a co-learning system. So everybody had a co-learner, or we had groups of 5, but we also had each person paired to one person. So we say, this person is my co-learner friend. So when you don't understand, and even reduce the burden on me a whole lot, it reduced the burden a whole lot. Because when you don't understand, you just go and meet. So when you come and meet me, I'll ask you first. I'll first ask you, have you gone to meet your co-learner? So when you and your co-learner don't understand, you will go to your group of 5. So this was the structure I created in my classroom. So it reduced the burden on me a whole lot. Like it was such a good experience, and it helped me to maximize my time teaching. So I know that when I teach for the first time, some people, their brain is very sharp. They've picked it. I take it again. Some people, it adds to the number, and I take it the third time. Then I take it the next day. And some majority of people would have picked it. But the truth is that it doesn't change the fact that there are some children who would not, and there's nothing wrong with them, okay? So that was why I created that structure. Some children will prefer to learn from their fellow students than even learning from you. And this does not mean that you're a bad teacher, okay? They are just different, and that's okay, right? And so that was the structure I had in class. Before you go and meet me someday that you have a question, have you gone to meet your co-learner? Like they knew the structure. So go and meet your co-learner. If you and your co-learner don't understand, go to your group of 5. When all of you don't now understand, you can now come. So when we now have a lot of groups of 5 that don't understand, I now know that, okay, I need to go and find another way to teach them. So now I now know that way I taught them, it cannot work. So they cannot come back to meet me again with questions from the same lesson I taught. And I'm still teaching them the same way. This is why as a teacher, you need to learn how to learn. You need to learn how to find different, interesting, creative ways to do things so that when plan A does not work, you can fall back to plan B. But if plan A works, you'll be happy that it works. But if it didn't work, you can fall back to plan B. But then create a structure. Like I said, you don't have to be the spotlight. And it's okay to put the children. That's how we actually raise children that are confident and children that can create solutions, because they know how to create the solutions within themselves, and they don't have to be looking for you all the time. So I always enjoyed my break period, during holidays. I was always doing fine because I had already created a structure of learning, and creating a structure that you can learn from anybody. So nobody is superior. No, see, everything I know, you can also know it too. So, and you can also teach it as well. So that was the structure I created. 2s, 5s, then you now come. So that helped me manage my time a lot.
Yes, thank you so much, Ramide. Personally, I'm also learning, even though I am not in the classroom. But for the works that we do as a foundation, that is something that's I think is a good one. I think we have one question from Eberi Mike. Is something around what you just answered now. She said that she has 8 periods in a day, and so it's about you just adopt a methodology, create smaller groups of the pupils, and then see how you can help them make the best out of it. So one Yusuf Benga is asking that how can a teacher manage the learners manage the learner's character who see school as a playground? If you correct them, they will do the same thing after a while. This is around classroom management and discipline. So I don't know if I'm able to say. Have you had any experience that's relates with this?
Yes, a lot. So, when there are 74 children in one class, first of all, that's already a playground. Because when you are teaching them, the seats are so close to each other that if one person does anything when you're teaching, everybody in that place is distracted. And before you know it, they'll just be laughing. Right? And that's it, right? But the thing is that school doesn't have to be boring. Okay? School doesn't have to be boring. So one thing that worked for me, everything I'm sharing here are things that worked for me, right? And I had students like this. When you're trying to teach a child something, you have practiced what you preach, you have tried to do everything, but they're not picking up. There's something that every child likes. Take that thing and use it to influence them. So when I had a child that likes playing in school, I will create the lessons around play for you. So when I'm done teaching everybody, when I'm done teaching everybody, and me, I know that you've not gotten it, but you will not say you have not gotten it. I had a particular, so I know I did this for a particular child in my class. He liked playing, he just liked playing and liked playing. So I took his play to another level, but I made his play a learning experience for him. So if he liked playing Ludo and he was having issues, this is an example, yeah? If he likes playing Ludo and he was having issues with counting, that's a very interesting way to introduce counting and make a child to love counting, right? So if you are trying to manage a child that sees school as a playground, don't flog the child. That's the child. People are different, right? Just as you have your own, like I can't sit in a boring lecture room. I actually would like a lecture room that is very interesting, like they are sharing stories and all that, and the teacher is looking happy, compared to when a teacher comes to class and the teacher is just talking. I will be bored, right? But there's a way that we can always channel these things. So when you have a learner that's, sees school as a playground, first of all, let's remember that these learners are children. All right, in the first place, they are children, and the majority of the thing they want to do is play. They want to have fun. Yeah, there's time for learning, but learning doesn't have to be boring. And as a teacher, you should always find ways to make learning interesting. Because just as a teacher, you don't like boring classes, you don't like boring lecture. Me, I don't like it anyway. So I will not want to go and be doing a boring lecture for my students. So as much as possible, I made it interesting. There were days I brought oranges to class, there were days I would bring apple. There was a time I was teaching them money, and I brought a carton of biscuits to class and gave different children biscuits and told them to sell it. So if you sell and you don't make your gain, it's because you did not count it very well. So the next day, if you want to make your gain, you count it very well. So that was how they learned money. And that's the way money is, real life. So I think that one thing that makes school even boring is how abstract it is. But when it is interesting, they will come along, they will want to learn. So as teachers, we should always think about how we can make learning interesting. There's no child that's too playful. There's always a way we can curb this thing if we study the child. So I won't for sure tell you that, oh, this is what you can do for this child, because I don't know the condition of the child. I don't know, what kind of families the child. What if the family the child is coming from, they don't play, and their life is not bubbling, and school is the only way for the child to just be a child. So I can't give you like a definite answer, but what I would say is this: make sure you know this child for who the child is, beyond the play. The child is too playful label. Every child always has interest in something, and there's always a way to captivate every child. So when you get the interest of the child, you're able to leverage it. So when I had children who like playing, I would create play for them, but also put learning inside the play, so that as you are playing, you're able to learn in the midst of doing this. When I had children that were dramatic, the only thing they like doing is drama. I created a drama in my classroom. You are struggling with English and grammar, but you want to play drama. I will put you as the actor. You will be the director of the whole movie show. But with that, you will learn how to speak English, because director that cannot speak English, how do you want to present the drama? So they will go and learn how to speak English. So that's like one way. You can always chip in things that they don't have interest in what they have interest in, and that will lure them in to now learn. I hope you understand this.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Does anybody else have any question? All right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Aramide. We sincerely appreciate that. Well, there's no question again in the chat box, and there's no hand raised up for now. So thank you. We sincerely appreciate you. So please, to our listeners, you just heard Aramide's story, I must say, real life story of how our works, our passion, our commitment to personal development have been real, have been like vulnerable to, in a way, as a teacher, to allow the our children, as she calls them, to see that she does not know all and she's willing to learn from them. And that has brought so much impact in the lives of the children she has worked with. We've seen Rokiba, we've seen Okay, which is very amazing. Like I was literally like I was actually looking forward to probably she would miss 97 or 96, but then she went all the way through to 100, and that shows. And in the space of 1 month, that is amazing. Did you say 1 month or 1 year? 1 month. Wow. So you can imagine that's the power of a transformational educator. Aramide, you are doing a lot of work, and we can only pray for more grace for you, and we hope that in the near future we can partner together to ensure that we help every child in every low income community to access quality education in whatever way we can. On this note, I want to say thank you. So please, to our viewers, we have a link already in the chat box. Kindly fill the link. We want to get some feedbacks from you to know what we can do better. This is going to be monthly. It's going to be recurrently. Next month we'll be bringing somebody from School Linker. It's somebody whose work also, whose vision like kind of aligns with what Aramide is doing also. So please, the expectants will share the creatives and information with you in the course of next month. So please, before you go, make sure that you click on this link to give us some feedback so that we'll know how to serve you better. Aramide, I can't thank you enough. Please keep the good job up, and we'll talk after now. Thank you. Let me unmute you. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you for joining, and thank you for the opportunity to share.
You're welcome.
So if you have any further questions or anything, you can always find me online on just RMD Kayode, and you find me. I'll be happy to help with anything you have or anything you need. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ara. Thank you so much. So please, let's don't forget to fill in the forms so we can get your feedback as we wrap up this session. Thank you, Aramida. As you can see, they are happy. They are all typing their thanks in the chat box. I am personally grateful to you, and we appreciate your input so far. So please go out there. Don't just be an educator. Be a transformational educator. Be a transformational teacher. Build relationship. Be ready to go the extra mile for them. Try to know them. Feel their impulses. Feel what is going on with them, and ensure that they add value to life. So thank you so much. On this note, we would love to call it a day, and we'll continue the conversation online. We'll be seeing some of the quotes from our presentation on our social media page sometimes next week. So thank you so much, and do have a wonderful weekend. Bye bye.